I wanted to add a few points to the previous video on aloneness. One simple clarification is that when we said saturation with companionship, it obviously does not mean saturation with a particular person. It means saturation with company itself. Why I am saying this is there are times when people do confuse one with the other. They are saturated with a particular person and they think this is enough, this is it. But actually the thing would be that they are saturated with one particular person. So when they come across another, they are again ready to engage. You would have seen people saying, why did I ever get married? But with most people who say such things, it would not be the problem with marriage itself, it would be problem with that particular person. So therefore, when we say saturation with companionship, it is important to be aware that it is actually so and not saturation with particular people or particular person. The second point I wanted to talk about is that although we spoke only of saturation with companionship, naturally that is not the only thing that would be required for a sense of aloneness to come about. There has to be saturation with every outward thing in general. There has to be saturation with pleasures, there has to be saturation with interest in money or power or anything that you can think of, any outward pursuit. So although we spoke only of companionship, it has to be extended to all the worldly pursuits in general. Only if there is saturation with outward pursuits in general, we can say that there is truly a sense of aloneness growing in the person. See, for example, there may be someone who does not engage with people as such. They don't like being in company, they don't seek company of people actively, but the whole day they may be engaged with Netflix or video games or some such thing. That is just another way that they are using to deal with their loneliness. That is not aloneness. They are again going outward in some way. If not real people, they are going outward and engaging with virtual world. Once one student asked me, just in a conversation, do I watch these series, this TV series or this whatever Netflix series that come? I said I used to watch, now I don't. And she asked if I have watched Game of Thrones, and I have not watched. So she was talking about it, and while discussing I said it is tamas, meaning engaging, involving too much in such things is tamasic. She suddenly came up with the argument that no, it is rajas, it is extreme energy and enthusiasm, it requires a lot of brain work and this and that, so it is rajas. And when I said engaging too much in the virtual world like this is tamas, she says anyway the world is also unreal. See, one thing is that we cannot use someone else's statement as a starting point for our argument. World is unreal is not our experience. So we cannot base our arguments on something that is not real for us. But anyway, if you say world is not real, the world of this TV series or video games or whatever, they are just again reflections. They are actually distorted or exaggerated reflections of the real world. So they are even more unreal. The virtual world of computers is even more unreal than the real world of the world around you. So it is better to engage with the real world, to engage with people, than with the virtual world. So anyway, that was the second point that I wanted to cover, that when we say saturation, it means saturation with outward pursuits in general and not just companionship, although companionship happens to be one primary outward pursuit. Now the third and the main point that I wanted to cover in this video, I don't know if you remember what I spoke of in the previous set of videos that was uploaded a couple of months ago. I uploaded I think 4 or 5 videos on a particular theme, that can be very nicely connected to this aloneness that we covered in the previous video. See, when we say aloneness, what we are basically speaking of is an integration of the individual, a gathering of the individual. See, in the phase of loneliness, aliveness itself is lacking, and there is no involvement with the world, or there is no opportunity for involvement, or the person himself is not involving. And when to get rid of the loneliness, when people engage in the world, they not just involve in the world, they invest themselves in the world. When I say invest, just like how you invest money, fixed deposits, you really invest yourself so strongly that you get scattered all over. In the previous set of videos, I used this term identified. So when you're very strongly identified with something, you are invested in it. So something happens to that, something happens to you. Somebody speaks badly of that, something bad happens to you. So there is a very strong sense of investment. So from loneliness, which is lack of aliveness, lack of involvement, when you come towards the phase of companionship or engaging in the world, there is involvement, but it becomes strong investment. And because of that investment, you get scattered. You're all over the place. You're scattered across so many things, so many ideas, so many people, and so many things. So in the next phase, when we say aloneness grows, there will be a withdrawal and there will be an integration of the individual. This does not mean you will not involve, but you will not invest. The investments will stop. You will no more be fixed deposits in places which cannot be withdrawn so easily. So there is no involvement in the first phase. In the second phase, there is involvement, but it becomes investment, and therefore it becomes entangling. You get scattered all over, and then you move forward. Now you will integrate yourself. The individual will get integrated. That is what was meant by the word aloneness. Sense of aloneness growing means the individual is getting integrated. So only when this integration of the individual happens, only when the individual is gathered into one place, what we call a self-inquiry is possible. Otherwise, when you are identified, when you are invested in so many things, when you are identified with so many things, when you already have the strong answers, I am this, I am this, I am that, the question of inquiry does not even arise. The question of self-inquiry does not even arise. So only after this aloneness grows, when the individual, the scattered individual, begins to become a whole, begins to become integrated, begins to gather himself, when the identifications become weaker, only after this happens, what we call a self-inquiry is possible. So whatever we discussed in the previous set of videos can be very easily correlated to the sense of aloneness that was spoken of in the previous video.